Hello, everyone. Welcome to the PTR. Had a wonderful thing. We are hospice nursing tuning in, really getting going for January. So we are in in California, Santa Clara, in January the 13th, talking about hospice. PT school about 10 years ago, and really stick out for you. One that to this day sticks out for me was we had a panel that came from a hospice that talked about end of life care. And there was a nurse, there was a social worker, a PT, a physician that all worked in nursing, and they all worked in hospice. That session thinking, what a job, like to be able dignity and respect in the end of their life. All loved their job, but you could see that they're really difficult. And in my mind, died of natural causes. My grandmother on my mom's side died at 89. My grandfather on my dad's side died at 93. And my grandmother on my my dad's side died at 97. She was almost 98. And I truly believe she was going to live to 100. But she ended up I feel like is natural causes. And they all had variations of their end of life care. And my grandparents, my grandfather and grandmother on my dad's side, both ended up transition in hospice care can really be. When individuals think hospice or palliative care, they think that an individual is dying imminently. And this was with my family as well. When I suggested that my grandmother, thought decided that they are not going to intervene to try and change their diagnosis. And that was kind of what fight this thing. It's going to make me feel really bad. I'm really hard for my family because she had been so healthy. We literally all had her that she was living past 100. And she decided that she did not want any interventions. And when she decided that, I made the recommendation that we go to hospice care to make her comfortable, give her dignity, allow her to continue with end of life list. We may not be accessing, pain management and all those things right now, but when that time comes, she's going to have the capacity to be able to access those services, access those individuals, hospice support personnel is coming that she couldn't be independent. There was a lot of was starting to be was there was not tons of, and they did this beautiful path through this archway that had angels and a cross. She was religiously inclined, that there are so many people who don't have that beautiful experience at the end of their life because they are surrounded by so many lines and tubes, and sometimes that's just the nature of what happens at the end of a. So she was 97, she passed away recently, and my grandfather, he was 93, and it was kind of the same thing that was happening. He was starting to decline, he was generally accent on them, but he gradually kind of slipped into, we didn't do any extraneous measures, into a peaceful transitions into the end of a person's life. And so I kind of lead with those two, one of peacefully dying at home, the other around peacefully passing her life. She never that. All of her kids were grown. They were all doing, and she just started to generally, her labs were kind of all over the place that well. And she just she wasn't really doing great. They couldn't really figure it out. They had decided not to do any invasive therapy. And she ended up transitioning term care. She was kind of just feeling by the fact that because now she was too sick to go home and they wouldn't let her go home. So there was a lot of, sad emotions around my grandmother on my mom's side transition into a long-term care that I did not recognize as a person in geriatrics is how I was going to be confronted with a lot of things around end of life care that I would not have expected going in. You kind of go into PT a lot of the times thinking that you're interacting with individuals who, being mortal, and a person whose loved one have had different person is experiencing their end of life care. And as a geriatric and around end of life, and not be afraid of those discussions. We are always trying to optimize a person's resiliency and keep them living healthier for longer. But there are going to be people that we interact with where that is just not the goal. And that is, we are trying to create comfort. We are trying to move limbs and stiffness and pain in those limbs. We are acting in a very different way. And by leaning into some of these conversations and being able to have some of these really candid discussion, great role for our patients, and one that we can answer a lot of questions. So I hope you've had any positive the podcast. If you want to reach out, otherwise, I hope you all have a wonderful end of your week. We will talk to you all soon.